Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Total Biscuit and welcome to the often requested and now provided League of Legends video. The purpose of this video is to— oh my god, what is better? I'm sorry, I don't know what came over me there. I think I was channeling the spirit of an irritating internet boy. Do I really have to address this? Yes, sadly I do. So, there are two main competitors right now in the MOBA scene. That's the multiplayer online battle arena. MOBAs derived themselves from a mod called Defense of the Ancients in Warcraft 3, which in turn derived itself from a mod in StarCraft called Aeon of Strife. Now, these two games, League of Legends, Heroes of Newerth. League of Legends is developed by Riot Games, consisting of some of the team behind the Dota design, and Heroes of Newerth is designed by S2 Games, and was aimed to basically be a better version of the original Dota. It does not have any of the Dota design staff, but it was blessed by IceFrog indeed, and heavily takes from the original mod. They both have different aims. Heroes of Newerth is firmly entrenched in the competitive scene and has done a fantastic job of accelerating the MOBA esports area. Indeed, it is the primary drive behind it right now. League of Legends has not done anything of the sort, although it is a very popular free-to-play game based on microtransactions, and as opposed to cloning Dota and simply making it better, they did make some fairly core mechanical changes to the game that they felt would improve the actual model. As to which is better, there will be a raging argument until the end of time, or until Dota 2 by Valve comes out and then everybody switches to that, but whatever. The point of fact is that perhaps people should spend a little bit more time playing the games they enjoy and a little bit less time trying to tell other people what they should enjoy. It's a little disturbing and quite frankly pathetic. With that out of the way, this is going to be an introductory guide to League of Legends. I'm going to show you a game, and I'm also going to show you the way that the user interface works and explain the various concepts like the metagame behind League of Legends. If you wish to sign up to League of Legends, full disclosure, there is a referral link. That is my referral link. Yes, I will get a benefit if you actually sign up and get to level 10. Indeed, if I get to a certain number, I will have an item in-game named after me, and I will demand that it is a top hat. So if you wish to contribute to the top hat crusade, you may very well do so, and we often play on our Ventrilo server, which is over on my website, and that tends to be quite a lot of fun as well. This is an EU referral link, so if you're in the US, then you will have to do without, but anyone can play on any server as long as they sign up an account, so you can play EU with very few problems at all if you want to come play with us. Anyway, let's kick it off then, shall we? So, first we'll go through the way that the user interface works. It is based on this bizarre client, which I think uses Adobe Air, which is not necessarily a good thing, but hey. And once you log in, you're presented with this window right here. You've got a number of options that you can click on. A lot of things like getting started, the status of the service, refer a friend, all that useful stuff. That will generally just kick off a browser window. You'll also have the latest news and announcements, including announcements for sales, as well as new champion releases and skins and things like that. Your play option, obviously, is at the top in the red, and you've got a number of options there, which I will look at in a moment. Firstly, I'd like to tackle the issue of microtransactions. That is what this game is driven by, so I'm going to show you the marketplace. So, essentially, this game is free to play. However, if you do start off and you don't buy any champions or whatever, then you'll be limited to the champions on that particular week's rotation. So every week they rotate it, they give you a number of champions you can play. The other ones are locked unless you buy them. However, you can buy them in one of two ways. One, you can purchase Riot points. Those are like Microsoft points, you buy them and then you can spend them on various things within the store. There are also influence points. These you don't have to pay for, and you earn them simply by playing. Once you have a certain number of influence points, you can unlock any champion you so desire. It does take a long time to unlock all of them, but you can pick and choose which ones you would like to go for, and the price of them varies. For instance, there's a good selection of initial champions that only cost 450 influence points. Getting that is very, very easy. That's a couple of games. and most of those champions are actually pretty damn good, so they're worth trying out, and then, of course, you can just use the ones that are on rotation. Now, there are things that you can only use riot points for. If you note right there, look at the Lil Slugger Trundle Bundle. That little icon under there indicates it requires riot points, and what that is a skin, a custom skin, plus the brand new hero Trundle the Cursed Troll, which is the hero I'm going to be playing for you today. Now, it should be noted that some of the most important items, i.e. runes, which I will explain in a moment, can only be bought with influence points, so you cannot technically buy power, although you can buy boosts, which will double the number of influence points you get, etc., etc. Okay, so that's basically the store in a nutshell. They offer a number of custom skins. These are, of course, entirely cosmetic. There are generally different kinds of skins. There are the really, really good ones, which are called legendary skins. Usually they have something special like custom effects or a custom set of voices. Like, for instance, the new one right there is called Brolaf. Yes, you think you can tell what exactly they're going for there. He has a new set of voices as well as a completely new skin. Some of them are just skins, some of them are just recolors, and they're all entirely optional. They're mostly vanity, kind of the same things as vanity pets in WoW. You get them to show off, and it does give you a different character portrait and things like that. Right. Okay, let's go on and have a look at the rune system, shall we? Because this is one of the most important differences between League of Legends and any other MOBA game. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this is the rune page, or one of several. Now, this game actually has a persistent level up system, so you have a summoner, and he will summon a variety of different heroes. He plays no actual part within the game per se. It's just an idea, and it's just a sort of contrivance to allow you to do this kind of stuff. Now, your summoner levels up by gaining experience by simply playing games, and the maximum level is level 30, which I am. It doesn't take a massive amount of time to get there. Now, as you level up, you unlock various things, and one of the most important things is the ability to place runes in your rune page. There are three kinds. There are marks, glyphs, and seals. These three different kinds of runes also have particular strengths and weaknesses. For instance, ones that do damage or are related to damage. Generally speaking, the marks, the red ones, will be much more powerful in that regard. The yellow ones are generally more powerful in terms of defense, and the blue ones do well in terms of magic, mana, cooldown reduction, a whole bunch of different things like that. But there is quite a bit of crossover. It's not set in stone. For instance, you can get a magic resist rune in the red slot if you desire, but it generally won't be as good as a magic resist rune over in the yellow or the blue slot. What you also gain access to is you get level 10, 20, and then 30 are these things that you see, those large things. They're called quintessences. They are basically uber runes. They are very, very potent. They're about as potent as 2 runes put together, and you can use those to finish sort of pimping out your character. As you can see to the side there, that'll show you the statistics of the rune page that I currently have set up. I've got a couple set up right here. This one is designed for the hero I'm going to be playing. His name is Trundle, the Cursed Troll, of course, and that will show you the benefits that I've gotten from that. Generally speaking, runes provide a very small benefit in and of themselves, but you do have an awful lot of them. Now, as you level up, you'll gain access to higher tiers of runes. At the start, you only get tier 1, which is not as powerful as the ones I'm using right now. You go through tier 2, and then, of course, through to tier 3 once you hit level 20. Pro tip for beginners, by the way, do not buy tier 2 runes. It is a complete waste. Just buy a bunch of tier 1s, and then just save your influence points, so that when you do hit tier 3, you can buy your big, fat, awesome runes at that point in time. Tier 2 runes, in my opinion, are a complete waste of influence points, and you shouldn't purchase them. Anyway, what I've got here set up, I've got a lot of armor penetration marks right there. I've also got a crit one in there. There's no real reason for that. It's just because I am lacking one of the armor pen marks. I need to completely fill out that particular color. So I could buy that with influence points if I like, but I'm actually concentrating on getting more of the yellow ones. These ones are actually very expensive in terms of influence points. They cost a huge amount of IP per rune. They are dodge runes. They are very potent, and they do exactly what they say on the tin. They increase my chance to dodge physical physical attacks, which for my setup is extremely vital. I've also got a little bit of mana regen per 5. Now, these runes actually scale, so the higher level I go in the game, not as your summoner, don't get that confused. You level up in the game as well, so when you level up in the game, those runes are going to get gradually more potent as I get all the way through to level cap. And in the blue slots, I have some nice magic resistance, because Trundle's magic resist is awful, so getting that to buff it up is pretty helpful. As regards to what I have in my quintessence slots right there, I believe I've got some armor penetration, and I've also got a dodge quintessence. Now, it's recommended you actually go for attack speed quintessences on this guy, but again, I don't have those. I don't have the influence points to buy them, and this setup works fairly well nonetheless. Now, there are setups which work really well with certain champions, some which don't, and there are certain champions which benefit from multiple different sets depending on what you're doing. That is something you'll kind of have to figure out for yourself. And what you can also do, which is not often done, but you can do it anyway, you'll notice there's a recycle thing down at the bottom there. You can use that to open up what's called the Rune Combiner, and you can throw away runes that you aren't using, and you can put in 2 into the Rune Combiner to create a different rune of that tier, or you can throw 5 in to create a higher tier rune. It's not used all that often, but I've used it to get rid of stuff that I've bought accidentally, that I've bought and then realized, oh, this is terrible, and I've actually got some nice stuff out of it. Say, my dodge quintessence I actually got from merging 2 crappy runes together, so I was pretty happy about that. But it is mostly pot luck, so let the buyer beware. Okay, going on to Masteries. Masteries is another part of the persistent system in this particular game, and it's basically like World of Warcraft talents. You have 3 trees, and you earn a mastery point for every level that you get. Once you get maximum summoner level, you can, of course, use 30 points in total. 3 trees, offense, defense, and utility. Depending on which champion you're going to play, depends on what you want to go down. Generally speaking, most of these have been figured out for optimal routes, although you've usually got a couple of points you can play around with. You see there, I've splashed into offense. There's a reason for that, and that's because in the first tier of offense, there's something which buffs up an ability called Smite, so I've grabbed that. I've put a lot into defense for this particular build, and I will explain why momentarily, and I've also thrown a little bit into utility right there. Now, these are ranging from not so great to really, really powerful. There are some things you might want to avoid. Pro tip, if you see the one between the little running man to the right-hand side and also the 2 hands with the bluey glow, the one between that is generally awful, and most people don't get it because it doesn't scale very well. The one below that is actually the same as well. The maximum, that actually increases your maximum mana, but it's only based on your base mana. It doesn't scale very well, whereas the other one actually gives you bonus experience, which is really, really good. So, yeah, you'll have to figure out which is good and which isn't. There are very good guides available. I would personally recommend a League Craft when it doesn't crash, which is quite often, and that will give you some good templates for various champions, and I would strongly recommend that you read a template. Please, for the love of God, read a guide before playing a champion. You do need to, honestly, you do. Otherwise, you will drag your team all the way down, and it's just going to get you flamed. Okay, there's another element to this which is not in Dota and Hon, which is Summoner Spells, so let me show you what's available here. Summoner spells are unlocked as you go up in levels as well, and you can take any 2 of these into battle with you. These are additional long cooldown abilities that cost no mana. Now, I'll go through them and tell you exactly what they do. Exhaust, as you can see right there, it blinds the target, which means that they're going to miss with physical attacks, and it also slows their movement speed for a few seconds. Ghost removes the collision detection with units so you can run straight through them, and also increases your speed for a short amount of time. Heal is what you might imagine. It heals you and people and indeed creeps around you. Revive brings you back to life instantly at your base. May I point out that Revive is awful and you shouldn't take it except in very, very specific circumstances. Revive is something that a lot of newbies take, and it is just not good at all. It is a really, really horrible ability, and there are much better abilities available even at level 1, like Ghost Exhaust, for instance. Smite, that's very situational. That will kill a creep, usually, or it will do heavy damage to a creep. It does a certain amount that scales up, and if it kills it, you'll often get bonus gold from that. That is used in very specific circumstances, and I'm going to show you that in this game because I will actually be doing something called jungling with my hero, and I'll explain that as we go in. Teleport, that gives you the ability to teleport to any friendly building, or actually in placement as well. You can actually teleport to wards, which is really, really useful. Cleanse, that takes away all negative effects that are currently affecting you, as you might imagine. Fortify, that creates a shield around all of your friendly towers for a few seconds, and it will also increase the attack speed of the tower, so you don't really want to go anywhere near it when something's fortified like that. It's a good saver. And you've also got Clarity there, which is a instant mana regeneration for you and people around you. Ignite is a damage over time, but it's also like a Mortal Strike within WoW. It cuts healing effects on the target for a certain few seconds, so it's really handy. Rally is a little beacon you put on the ground, which increases damage for those near the beacon. Clairvoyance is the ability to open up a small period of the map for a short amount of time. It actually lets you spy on different areas. It's on a quite short cooldown. It's always nice to have one of those on your team so that you've got a little bit of map awareness. And Flash, which is a fairly controversial ability, a lot of debate as to whether or not this should still be in the game. That's actually an instant teleport that will teleport you forward a short distance, but it is on a fairly long cooldown. As I say, you can take any two of those into the game, but you will be limited based on level. Like Flash, for instance, you need to be higher level to use. You've got about 5 or 6, I think, abilities you can use at the start, and that's the stuff that you see at the top there. Right, okay, so that's the spell system, mastery system runes. I think we've pretty much covered everything except for the available game modes. Now, at the moment, you have access to 2 different maps. You have the Summoner's Rift, which is the main 5 versus 5 map. That's an almost direct clone of the Dota map. And you've also got a new one called the Twisted Tree Line, which is a 3 versus 3 map. Most people tend to favor the 5 versus 5, I don't really blame them. That is the preferred format for Dota games anyway. I personally also like that. You have an option there for normal game, which will just queue you and matchmake you. That is the blind pick format, which means that you have no idea what your opponents are picking, and you can also pick the same hero as someone on the opposing team does. So you could end up with a mirror match there. Ranked game is something a little bit different. That is a ban mode. So basically you go in there and each team captain is able to ban 2 heroes, which will not be available for picking. You then pick your heroes in a sort of draft arrangement. So you will pick one on your side, and then the other side will pick 2, and then you'll pick 2, blah, blah, blah. So in a competitive environment, what you want to be doing is picking heroes that specifically counter what your opponent's team's picked. Ranked mode is only available for those at level cap right now. You can't go in there without that, and also if you don't have enough heroes unlocked, where potentially you could end up with no heroes if all your heroes either get banned or picked, then you won't be able to access it either. You also have custom game. This can be set up for in-house scrimmages. Right, one last thing, we'll have a look at this page right here, which is the champions I currently have access to. I can't scroll all the way down. This is a screenshot. You can't actually use Frapp's screen recorder to do this because it's freaking Adobe Air. It's horrible. Anyway, the stuff that's grayed out is stuff that I cannot play unless it is available on rotation in that week. The stuff that is in color is the stuff that I've unlocked. You will actually notice a little blue and yellow exclamation mark there next to the hero Gragas. And that indicates that he is available on rotation that week, so you can play him, but he will disappear the next week. You can unlock these heroes with influence points or by using riot points. Generally speaking, you don't want to spend real money on the actual heroes. It is fairly pointless. You can unlock them all simply by just playing. And honestly, you don't need all of them. Really, you don't. There's more heroes there than you possibly play in a very, very long time. But I think the only one I've ever actually paid for directly was Trundle, because he did come in a bundle. Yes, the Trundle bundle. Oh, yeah. And that came with 2 skins. I'm going to be using one of those for you today. And like I said before, skins, they give no practical advantage, but they are awesome. And they're a good way to support the company who otherwise provides the product for free. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, if you've got through this far, then you've had a basic primer to the user interface and some of the concepts of League of Legends, but the proof is in the putty, and we're going to be eating that for you right now. Oh, yes, indeed. Game time, ladies and gentlemen. Let's get it on. Okay, let's kick it off right here. Here's the loading screen for you, and the useful thing about this loading screen, aside from watching how slow other people load, is the fact that you can see what everyone's got for their summoner spells. I've got Ghost and Smite is something you need to look out for. Smite, about 95% of the time, means that the hero in question is going to be jungling. So he's not going to be in a lane, he's actually going to be farming neutral creeps in various areas of the map. It is fairly important to know whether or not that is the case, and in my case, people can see that I'm going to be jungling. It's predictable, really. Trundle is a very good jungle hero. Right, without further ado, we'll kick it off, and I'll explain exactly the concept of jungling and what I'm doing as we go through this video. You start off with a shop, and you need to buy a couple of items to kick you off. With this hero, I bought cloth armor, which increases my physical damage resistance and 5 health potions. What you buy depends on what hero you actually choose, and I would strongly recommend reading a guide for every single hero. If you're going to play a hero, please read a guide for it, and it will tell you what the best starting items are. Don't necessarily go with the recommended items because they're often wrong. They really are. It's unfortunate. I don't know why Riot hasn't properly updated them, but more often than not, the recommended items will actually take you down the wrong path. Now, a couple of changes right here. That is a spawn point for the League of Legends equivalent of Roshan, which is Baron Nashor. This is a spawn point for a smaller epic monster called the Dragon, and that will give you some bonuses, and I will show you, because I'm going to be doing the Dragon at some point in the not-too-distant future. Now, the spot that I'm at right now is for an epic Golem, and that is for an epic Lizard Elder. Now, why do these exist? Well, in Dota, you've got a couple of buffs that will appear in the rivers between lanes, which you can grab. They're kind of pot luck. In the case of League of Legends, there are 2 buffs, main buffs anyway, available, and you can grab them from epic monsters. So you have to actually get the last hit on the epic monster, and then you will get that buff for a certain duration of time. So in this case, I'm going first for the so-called blue buff. The blue buff gives you cooldown reduction, and it also gives you mana regeneration. Now, for the thing that I'm doing right here, which is jungling, getting this first is pretty damn important. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up with the use of Smite, which does a large amount of initial damage to this creep. I'm going to be popping my potion straight away, and I'm using my level 1 ability, which is called Rabid Bite. Now, Rabid Bite does instant attack damage, and it also gives me a boost in the physical damage I can do, and I've killed the golem. I've got that little blue thing spinning around me that indicates that I have the blue buff, and I'm going to be pushing forward with this, and this is a good start. I've got a reasonable number of dodges on that as well. It's quite important that you don't die very early on, as you might imagine, and getting dodges against these mobs is going to help an awful lot. Now, I did level up there, so I can choose from a number of different abilities. In this case, I've picked Contaminate. Contaminate is a large area of effect, which will speed me up, and it will also increase my attack speed while on it. It doesn't last for too long, but it's pretty damn important. Speaking of pretty damn important, our team just got the first blood. You see, Shen took out Tryndamere right there. If you get the first blood in the game, then you get a bonus of cash. So it's really, really good that our team got that. That gives us a nice point to start from going forward. Now, the reason that I'm doing this, the reason that I am jungling right here, it does give an advantage to the team if you do it properly. What it means is we've got one hero who is actually doing a lane on his own. Your usual setup, if you don't have a jungler, is going to be your top lane's going to have 2 people in it, your bottom lane's going to have 2 people in it, and your middle lane will always have a single person in it. Now, if you've got a single person in a lane, they will generally gain experience faster, and they also have the opportunity to gain more gold. The way that you earn gold in this game is by getting kills, whether they be neutral mobs, creeps in the lane that are constantly spawned from the bases, or from killing enemy champions, which in League of Legends is the primary way of getting big chunks of gold. You don't get quite as much from farming lanes as you would in, say, Heroes of New Earth or Dota, so it is focused on actual player versus player fighting. Now, in the case of the jungle setup, you will usually put one guy in the top lane. Now, that one guy should be a fairly strong hero for soloing. If he's not, then the chances are he's just going to end up getting killed, and that's going to be a complete and total disaster for you. So you want to avoid that if at all possible. Cho'Gath is a good hero for soloing. Admittedly, he is in a pretty tough lane right here, and unfortunately, I can't look at him because, annoyingly enough, this game does not have replays, which is incredibly stupid, and it really should be in the game, and that's something Riot should prioritize. He actually got himself killed right there. Blitzcrank and Sona managed to take him out. Thankfully, he does manage to recover from that. Now, I've gone back to base to buy more health potions because I was very, very low in health, and this is kind of what you do as a jungler. You do a little bit of a run around, get both the buffs, get a certain amount of money, then return. You will notice that I was able to portal back to my base using something that is colloquially known as the blue pill, and the reason for that, as far as I'm concerned anyway, is that every time you die, you'll ask yourself, why oh why didn't I take the blue pill? In the case of that, it is basically a town portal. It will draw you right back to your base. It costs absolutely nothing to cast it. You can cast it at any time, but any damage will interrupt it, and it takes about 8 seconds, so you are very vulnerable doing that. It's very handy, though. It's very convenient, and I do like that particular feature. I'm going back at the jungle right here to get some more money. You'll notice I did buy a longsword, which is giving me some extra damage, and I'm trying to build my first item, which is called the Mandridge Razor. In the meantime, I'm heading up to top, though, to see if I can get a gank on. It's not looking likely, though. I want to try and support Cho'Gath right here. The problem is they are quite close to their tower. Now, you may have noticed towers before. Towers are really dangerous early game, but you have to blow them up in order to gain access to your enemy's base. There are 2 in each lane, and then there are 2 more at the outside and inside of the base that you really have to concern yourself with. You'll see them on the map right there. In the meantime, I'm just going to try and gank the opponents. Am I going to be able to get a kill out of this? It's looking fairly likely. Beating on Sona right here. She gets the heal. I've just got knocked in the air, though, so I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to grab her. Do I get it? Yes, I do. There we go. Smack. Get her with the rabid bite right there, which does give you a slight movement forward, so it's good for chasing. So that's really helped Cho'Gath out, and I'm going to be moving back into my jungle. Anyway, I was talking about the towers. So the tower's going to do big damage to you, but generally speaking, if there are creeps in range, they will target you unless you are targeting an enemy hero that is within range of the tower. Otherwise, if you do that, then the tower will go for you, and it will hurt like hell, especially at lower levels. So you've got to watch out for diving into towers like that. It can get you killed very easily. You've got to blow the towers up, though, and they do give gold to the entire team if that happens. You get 100 gold if you blow up a tower, which is really great. And then once you've blown up the towers, you can gain access to the enemy nexus. Once the enemy nexus is down, the game is over. And you also gain access to something called inhibitors. If you blow up an inhibitor, then you start spawning super creeps. Some really, really unpleasant monstrosities for a limited amount of time. That will make holding the lane an awful lot harder if you happen to be going up against those guys. So you want to be protecting your towers and your inhibitors at all times. Moving behind here once again to see what I can do, which is not an awful lot, really. I don't have a lot of mana, and I don't have that nice blue buff that I heard earlier, so my mana regeneration is basically down the toilet. What I can do, however, is take some of the creeps around here to gain some experience and gain some gold. Now, normally you will not be doing this. You will not be jungling, and you will actually be in lanes fighting. There's a few things you need to bear in mind if you are in the lanes fighting. Firstly, harassment. Harassment is really important. What you want to do is try and stop your opponent from getting so-called last hits on the mobs and creeps in the lane. Why do you want to do that? It's pretty simple, because if you stop them from doing that, they don't get an awful lot of gold. Every time they get a last hit, they get a set amount of gold, and they're also gaining experience faster if they're gaining last hits and actually getting kills. If you can harass your opponent, whittle their health down, then not only might you get a chance at actually getting a kill out of it if they're careless, but you may also drive them out of the lane, which means they're not gaining experience, and you can basically farm creeps that are pushing forward freely until they come back. It's pretty important, and I would strongly recommend that you do it. There are various champions that have good harassment abilities. Actually, Sona up at the top right there has an exceptionally good one. You want to watch out for that. She has a deceptively long range, and she can hurt really, really hard. So just be careful about things like that. We're going for Sona again right here. Will we be able to grab her? Well, I do have some nasty abilities at my disposal. I'm going to use something called Pillar of Filth right here. That actually creates a physical block, and it also slows down anyone that goes past it. I'm in there right now, and I've actually used what's called my ultimate attack. At level 6, you gain access to your ultimate attack, and in this case it's something called Agony. It is really nasty. It does some damage, and it also drains magic resistance and armor, so it makes them very, very vulnerable and easy to kill. It's really, really good, and of course each of your champions has a different ultimate ability. Some are really awesome, some not so much, and you're going to want to pick it up at level 6 anyway. What I should also point out as a difference between Heroes of New Earth and League of Legends is that each of these champions has a passive ability. Trundle's passive ability is called Decompose. Whenever anything dies within a certain range of me, I gain 2% of their maximum health back as health for me. So that's really nice for jungling. You'll see that I was regenerating health quite nicely, in addition to the potions that I was using there. I need to go and try and help out Cho'Gath if possible right here, but it looks like Blitzcrank has backed off, so we don't need to worry about that too much. As a jungle hero, you need to prioritize ganking. You need to be helping out in different lanes. You need to be roaming after a certain point. And jungling is a fairly advanced technique, and you might not want to be doing it if you don't know what you're doing. Nasty. Katarina tries to ultimate me there. Does a lot of damage to me. It's not going to be enough, though. Or is it? I'm getting beaten on. But here's Shen's ultimate. He's able to teleport in. He applies a shield. And then Shen takes out that Katarina. It's a nice play there by Shen. Very, very good indeed. Happy about that. Very happy. I could have potentially died there. I probably would have got the kill, but I can't be certain. Bear in mind the Katarina does have some nasty abilities that can come out very quickly. And she also actually doesn't use mana. She's entirely cooldown based. It's interesting. You'll notice there Shen has a yellow bar right there. He doesn't use mana either. He actually uses energy, which is very similar to the energy system in World of Warcraft. Onward, I'm going to chase down, or indeed I'm going to try to chase her down right here. Place the Pillar of Filth, do a good amount of damage. Can we lock her down? More to the point. There's the taunt. She's so very, very low, but I just ate the ultimate attack of Sona right there, which is that nasty conal stun, and I wasn't able to go in, but we've got a right Royal Rumble going on in the middle right here. Want to be a little bit careful, though. I did get worn down quite a bit, and I don't have any health potions left, so staying in lane might not be the best of ideas. I'm going to back off here for the time being. MOBA games are generally designed around team combat, and often that team combat needs to be in your favor. Now, these are not honorable games. If you're playing it honorably, you are doing it wrong. It's as simple as that. These games are based around getting any advantage you possibly can, and if that means jumping on someone 2-on-1, outnumbering them, attacking them as they're low health, trying to run away, you do it. You do everything possible. The thing is, this can all be countered by simple map awareness and actual team play. That's what makes Dota Clones such an interesting team-based game, because you've got a lot of strategy and counter-strategy, positioning. You need intelligence as to what's going on the map at any given time, which often involves dropping wards down so that you can see where people are, also using abilities like clairvoyance and things like that, and more importantly, and this is a good beginner tip that you need to know, the concept of calling missing. When you are in a lane, it's generally your responsibility to let your team know if the opposing champions are not in the lane with you. For instance, right now, say if you're in middle lane, you'd expect another champion to be there. Annie's been facing off in the middle lane for quite some time, and she needs to let people know if Katarina is not in the lane with her, because that means Katarina could be coming to a different lane in order to try and gank. So you have to be very, very careful there. If you do not call missing, then generally speaking, you will get your team killed. It's not good, and it's often a mistake that is made by players that are not particularly good at the game. Communication is vitally important. Now, I was talking about this dragon earlier. The dragon is good to kill. I should have really killed the dragon earlier than this, but I just really haven't had the opportunity. So I'm going to beat him down. The dragon's great because if you're able to kill the dragon, then you gain a bunch of gold, and so does the rest of the team. 130 gold for the rest of the team there, and a bunch of experience. It really does help, and it can actually help your team come back from a losing situation if you're able to grab the dragon. The dragon is quite hard to kill. Takes a little bit of effort, does a fair amount of damage, has some area of effect nonsense, and you do need to watch out for the possibility of the enemy team coming in while you are fighting the dragon and either stealing the dragon or killing you at the dragon. A smart tactic would be to buy a sight ward, which is a very cheap item you can place on the ground for 4 minutes, which will give you visibility, and place it near the dragon. That means if you see the enemy going for the dragon, then you can actually jump on them and gank them. I'm going for Katarina right here, although I'm not entirely convinced I'll be able to get her. She blinks through and tries her ultimate attack. It's not good enough, though. Beating on her right there. Good stun by Annie. Am I going to get her? Am I going to get her? Yes. Yes, indeed. Splat, says Trundle. They see me trolling, and they hating. I love Trundle. Trundle is such a fun hero to play right now. Really, really great. Now, unfortunately, we actually lost the tower there. This is the first tower to go down this game, and that means they can push further down the lane. However, it also changes the dynamic of the battlefield, because it's going to change where they usually are. Like, for instance, usually you'll be fighting around here. Now, I'm not going to be able to get anything out of this, but I can menace the opponent and get him the hell away. Blitzcrank misses his grab right there. I'm going to have to get out of there, though, because Sona's coming to back him up. I'll place a Pillar of Filth just to slow him down, and then I can run away and farm some creeps lower down here. So, again, it changes the dynamic of where you're fighting. So they're going to be fighting around here now instead of up there, which means there are a number of avenues you can use. For instance, that long grass right there. This is something that is not in Heroes of New Earth or in Dota. The long grass actually blocks vision. If you are in the long grass, you can't be seen from outside of the long grass unless you either cast an ability or there is some form of vision inside the long grass. This can be a good setup for ganks, and it can also break line of sight if you're trying to run away from an enemy. It's very, very handy, and a technique called juking is often used to sort of move fairly unpredictably through in and out of the grass to try and escape. Now, the reason that this is effective is a lot of the abilities within this game are so-called skill shots. A skill shot means that you actually have to aim it. Not all of the abilities are. For instance, you can see a lot of Trundle stuff isn't. Like, my ultimate isn't. You can just click on something within range, that'll happen. My bite isn't, but my Pillar of Filth, now that is a skill shot, because that's actually aimed. Now, they vary in difficulty. Some of them are big area of effect attacks or cones that are really easy to hit. Some of them are actually very, very precise and take a degree of practice to hit, but they're often very powerful to compensate for that. So, juking in and out of brush, indeed the long grass there, and stuff like that is really, really nice. It's very handy to try and get the evasion. I'm going to try and move in to help out Annie right here. I use my Contaminate to speed me up, and I'm going to beat on Blitzcrank. 1, 2, he's tough though, he's got a big shield, and Rammus coming in from the side with the stun. Can we take him? Well, I've actually been taunted by Rammus, but it's not going to help. I'm going to beat my way through Blitzcrank. Chase Rammus around a bit. Rammus is really unpleasant because he's got a lot of abilities that can actually stop you from doing damage to him. But wow, Shen with the save right there. Annie was getting beaten up. Shen used his ultimate to warp in. I'm able to turn around and get another kill out of that one. But we're not going to get too much out of here. What we can do is chase after Tryndamere, who is going to commit veritable suicide. His ultimate will allow him to basically cheat death for a few seconds. I'm going to chase him down anyway. There's no way I'm going to let him get away from that. Or am I? No, I don't really want to dive into that. What I'd be doing there is something that is known within LoL and indeed Dota and Horn as tower diving. Tower diving means that you dive past the tower, you run past the tower, deliberately taking the hits in order to try and get a kill. It's extremely risky. It only works really with certain heroes and at certain points of the game. Once we get later in the game, tower diving is not as risky, and towers aren't this foolproof defense that they are early on. So it's a considered risk, honestly. It's often worth it, but if you end up dying as well, or indeed if you die and the opponent doesn't, then you've just fed the enemy team money. This is a good chance, I suppose, to give you information on the concept of feeding and also the mindset of a lot of players of games like this. You might have heard that the Dota community, the Horn community, and the LoL community are very, very unpleasant individuals. You would be mostly correct in that assumption, and there is a reason for that. There's a certain psychology behind the way that this game works that makes people unpleasant. So if you die, you actually give a benefit to the opposing team. So you dying is putting your team at a major disadvantage, and every time that happens, people tend to get really angry. And one of the nasty terms used in game is a so-called feeder. If you are basically feeding the enemy team kills and not getting enough kills yourself to compensate, you are considered to be feeding, and you will be called a feeder, and if you do that too much, then you've basically lost the game for your team, because you're just giving them money and experience on a silver platter, which is not good at all. Thankfully, we don't have any feeders in this game. Our team's actually pretty good. On a beat on Blitzcrank right here. I don't know. Well, yeah, we go. There we go. That's what I'm talking about. I'm taking some pretty heavy hits from the tower right there. I want to back off just a little bit. We're trying to draw them in. Our team's actually taking a lot of damage. Tryndamere, hyper-aggressive right there. He might take me out, but no, he can't catch me. He pops his Endless Rage to stay alive, but he's going all the way after Annie. Sadly, I was a little bit slow on that Pillar of Filth, although I did manage to pick up the kill on Tryndamere there. I actually got the assist, and Cho'Gath got a double kill there. It's good stuff. Pushing them back right here. This was a good team fight and continues to be a good team fight. That Sona is so very low. I want to dive for that Sona, but I know I can't. I'm going to go for Katarina instead. There, she blinks out, unfortunately, so I'm going to have to just let that one go. The worst thing you can do is get overconfident and greedy. If you get greedy for kills, you'll end up making mistakes, and you'll end up feeding kills back to the enemy. For me, specifically, that's really bad, because there is also a system called the kill streak system in this game. Kill streaking in this game is actually bad for you. Yeah? So, as opposed to, say, Call of Duty, where you might get some kill streak bonuses, here, all you do is put a bounty on your head. If you keep getting kills, and you then get killed, then the person who killed you picks up a nasty bounty. Right now, I'm worth quite a bit, so I don't really want to go and feed that to the enemy team. That would be stupid. Plus, it's a matter of pride. You want to attain the top level, which I believe is Legendary. Legendary, I think, is a streak of about 10 kills or something like that without dying. I'm on 6 without dying right now, which is not too bad. I am classed as dominating, I believe. I'll go through to godlike and stuff like that after that. Again, they're just sort of ego titles more so than anything, but they do represent how much bounty you were worth. Ramus in a bad position right there, and unfortunately he did flash out, and then he spins away, so I'm not going to be getting anywhere close to him right now, but it's going to get a little bit of free farm in the middle, a little bit extra cash. Now, if you want to look at what items I've got right now, I'm actually sitting on a Mandrid's Claws. Mandrid's Claws are nice because they have a proc chance to deal a load of extra damage to NPCs, so for jungle heroes, they're almost essential. I've also got some boots. There are a wide variety of different boot types within League of Legends. The ones I've got are Mercury Tread. They give me a speed boost, which is absolutely essential. They also give me magic resistance, and a really nice bonus, they reduce crowd control effects on me. It's actually the only item in the game that does that, so that's well worth having, especially since we're up against quite a few magic heroes right here. I also have a Phage, which is a hammer, which gives me a bit of extra damage, some health, and a proc chance to slow my opponent down, and I'm building what's called a Frozen Mallet, which is like the ultimate version of Phage. In this game, you can build items from a wide variety of different things. You buy basic items, which will then become recipes for better items, and you'll see the prerequisites for items in the shop, and it's fairly easy to work out what you can build. I'm taking a Giant's Belt right there, which is a big HP increase, plus my Phage, and then when I pay some extra, I can turn that into a Frozen Mallet, and generally speaking, the item in question will be better than the sum of its parts and will often give a unique benefit. In the case of the Frozen Mallet, it actually gives a guaranteed slow as opposed to a proc chance based slow. Right, we need to get into the middle right here, and we are winning here, but I need to do some damage. I'm looking for it, but I don't really want to dive in against 4 people. Right now, that's pretty much suicide. I've got backup from my friend Annie over there, but she's quite beaten up. What I can do is try and scare them off. Do they want to go up against Trundle after they've seen what I can do? It's unlikely. They're going to hold back and look for an opportunity to strike at me, which is giving my guys a chance to actually come back. What I can do right here is try and stop Tryndamere. Grab and a splat. Down he goes, saving Rise's ass right there. Oh yes, it's good stuff, and a nice move from Annie as well. She has a lot of burst damage. She actually unleashed there with a fireball and with a conal flame effect, which melted Tryndamere, and I smacked him with my car exhaust. Oh yeah. Now, dying in this game, as you go further on, your respawn time will grow larger and larger and larger, and that generally ensures that the game can't go on forever. If you have a really long respawn time, and if indeed you kill the entire enemy team, especially late on in the game, chances are you're probably going to win it, because you're going to get a free shot at any of those towers, and you're going to be able to do great damage and hopefully take down the Nexus and the inhibitors. Now, Blitzcrank moving in right here should be able to grab him. I think this is a fairly good shot. There we go. He tries to escape, but I put a pillar of filth in his way, and then we absolutely twat him. Down he goes. Yeah, this is a pretty good game thus far, honestly. And like I say, Trundle is a great hero, and I'm liking him an awful lot. He works well as part of pretty much any team. He's particularly good against physical carries. I'm going to have to explain that one as well. There's a lot of terminology in these games. So, a carry, generally speaking, is a hero that is quite weak early on, but if he gets fed and if he gets good kills and if he doesn't die too much, he can end up carrying the team at the end. Usually he's subpar at the start of the game, but he'll get an awful lot better. Like Tryndamere, for instance, that hero up there, he's kind of a carry. He can become an absolute monster late game if you let him, which is why I'm not going to let him. I'm actually going to smack him about a bit. There we go, down he goes. Nicely done. So, right now, I'm pretty much carrying the team. I mean, I'm 7 for naught. We're doing really, really well. We've pushed the second tower right now, so we're actually at the base tower. If we kill the base tower, we get access to their inhibitor, which means we can spawn some super creeps, and then things get awfully messy for them. You might also notice that there are 2 of these creatures on either side of the map. Sometimes you can go into the enemy jungle and steal theirs. Right now, for instance, I'm at no risk of being killed, so I'm going to steal their red buff. Nicely done. And we've also got Sona up there. I want to try and take her out, but she's really close to that tower, and I'm actually not in a fit state to fight her. So I'm going to menace her a little bit, chase them off. And I actually blocked myself in there, which was so incredibly dumb, having to get out of there. Shen ulties in. which is good, because I've got that shield on me right there. I took a lot of damage. Okay at the minute, but I really shouldn't have actually stuck around there. That was so incredibly stupid. I'm really close to dying right there. I got an Ignite on me. I got a nasty Mortal Strike. I'm just able to get away. Shen saves my ass right there. Oh yeah, the Shen on this team is really, really good. He is absolutely 110% on the ball all the time. You just don't see him making mistakes, and there he picks up yet another kill. Charges in on Blitzcrank. The guy just does not stop. Okay, I've got my Frozen Mallet. That's really nice. That's a good, strong, expensive item. So, right now, I could upgrade my Mandrids to something. This has actually got two options. There's a Mandrid's Blood Razor, which is like a tank-killing item. It shaves off health based on maximum HP. And I've also got something called a Wriggles Lantern right here, which gives a load of different nice benefits. I'll pick that up, and a Dagger as well for some attack speed. We're actually reaching the end of the game right here. We don't get to kill their Nexus because they give up. So you can surrender on 25 minutes with a majority vote. You need at least 4 votes from a 5-man team in order to do it. And if you're in a situation where you know it's just going to drag on and you know that you're going to lose, then surrendering is the best option. Wasting people's time is generally bad etiquette. Right now, there's just no heroes in lane, so I'm just going to go and take some more buffs, smack some NPCs around a bit, and then I was going to head up and do some more damage, but by the looks of it, we're not going to get too much further in this game. As I recall, they do surrender within the next few minutes. Now, there you go. That's it. There's the surrender. This game is one I've been playing for quite some time. I played Dota for about 3 or 4 years. I played some HON in the beta, and I moved over to League of Legends simply because I wanted to give it a try. I enjoyed it, I stuck with it, and it is a free-to-play game. I would highly recommend at least giving it a try, and you can pick it up with the referral link that I've put there in the description if you so desire. That's pretty much a look at League of Legends, ladies and gentlemen. That is a little bit of hardcore trolling right there with Trundle. Really fun hero, big fan of that. And I'll put some more LoL videos on the channel if people are actually into it. Like I said before, since this game does not have a spectator mode and it doesn't have replays, it is really quite hard to properly capture gameplay. I have to limit my frame rate, which means that the game is not running as smoothly as I would want, which actually makes the game harder for me to play. Say I'm used to running at 60 frames per second. If I'm running at 30, then that entirely screws with me. I'm actually surprised that I did as well as I did in that game with the 30 FPS limit on Fraps, but it's not a perfect game. People say that HON is better or whatever, and people will always have their own personal preferences, and in some areas HON indeed is better. As an esport, as a competitive sport, and indeed in terms of its actual skill ceiling, HON is a higher skilled game, although don't let people fool you. To say that LoL is an easy game would be a lie. HON has a few extra aspects which make it a little bit more difficult and also add a little bit more micromanagement in, such as, say, creep denying. Personally, that's not a mechanic I really like, but hey, you know, each their own on that one. It's wonderful to have choice, isn't it? I mean, if you only had one game to play, I'm sure you get incredibly bored. I know I do. I've got a bit of gaming ADHD, I think. Again, it's not perfect. There are often server downtimes. There are some stupid changes in a lot of patches. I mean, we've had bugs appear out of nowhere. Sometimes you get champions which are introduced which are, without question, I might add, imbalanced. Either they're way underpowered or they're way overpowered. Often the balance changes of Riot leave me scratching my head. But overall, it is a really cool game. Like I say, it is by that indie developer. They did self-publish it. It is entirely available on PC via digital download with its free-to-play model. And it's survived now, must be for about a year at least, I would think. So they're doing pretty well for themselves. And I do think they are worth supporting, which is, again, why I buy their skins and their stupid Riot points and all that nonsense. You know, I get a lot of fun out of the game. It is extremely enjoyable. It is my go-to game when I've done a day's worth of recording. I'll sit down, I'll play some League of Legends with the guys on Vent. Again, just bear this in mind. It is a team game, so if you're playing solo, you might encounter some very unpleasant individuals. And yeah, if you can't tolerate that, please do not play any Dota-style game. People can be really unpleasant. They can be absolute dicks. There's no question about that at all. But if you're playing with friends and you're playing as part of a fixed team against another fixed team, it can be a really rewarding, highly tactical, and very cool experience. So, that was a look at League of Legends, ladies and gentlemen, as often requested and now so provided. I might do more LoL content in the future, but like I say, without a spectator mode, it is really a pain in the ass to actually film. I have to change my resolution around. It's just, Yeah, it's really awkward, so I'm not promising anything, but you never know. If it's popular enough, if I can justify the time, then I might pop up the occasional League of Legends video on this channel. Thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you next time.